Hello from the hilltop. Welcome to today's Alumni Career Services webinar sponsored by the Georgetown University Alumni Association. I'm Sarah Smith, Associate Director of Alumni Career Services, and I want to thank all of you for joining us for today's webinar, Finding Work You Love After 50, presented by Hoya friend Hallie Crawford. Before we get started, I'd like to share a few webinar tips and reminders. First, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available to all registrants on our Alumni Career Services YouTube channel within 48 hours of today's broadcast. You'll receive the link to the webinar recording in a webinar follow-up email, which will also contain a post-webinar survey for you to take, information on upcoming webinars, and more ways to stay connected with Georgetown Alumni Career Services. Hallie will conduct a Q&A session at the end of her webinar, and she looks forward to hearing from you. Please send in your questions and comments for Hallie throughout the session using the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel. And finally, if you're having any technical difficulties at all, please submit those concerns to me via the questions area of the GoToWebinar control panel as well. Without further ado, I'm pleased to introduce Hallie. Our presenter, Hallie Crawford, is a certified career coach and national career expert based in Atlanta, Georgia. Her company, HallieCrawford.com, and team of coaches have helped thousands of people worldwide identify and transition into their dream career, effectively navigate their job search, and enhance their performance at work. Hallie is regularly featured as a career expert in the media, including U.S. News, Forbes.com, The Wall Street Journal, CNN, and Fox Business News. Hallie, we're thrilled to have you here with us today, so I'm going to turn things over to you now so that we can get started.
Thank you, Sarah. That was great. And I love the introduction part of being a Hoya friend. That's perfect. I love that title. So thank you all for being here today and really appreciate your time, especially on your lunch hour where hopefully for you it's a beautiful spring day like it is here in Atlanta. So we are going to be talking about finding work you love after 50. And I'm very excited to be here with you all today. One of the first things that I wanted to let you know kind of right out of the box here is that we understand that my team of coaches and myself as well, we understand how difficult this situation can be for people where they are feeling confused about what their next step is career-wise. And some of you may think of it as your encore career, whatever, however you call it for yourself. And I know that it may sound kind of surprising to think that I can understand how difficult this can be because I know I sound like I'm 20. I'm actually 46, and I have been coaching and training for over 18 years now. And I'll be honest with you, even though what I do as a career coach, I absolutely love it. This is our website, obviously, on the slide. And I feel like what I do as a career coach is, my purpose and what I'm meant to be doing. Continuing to have that sense of purpose in my career, I have to work on it as well. Sometimes things happen to me where I feel like I'm no longer challenged as much, or I'm doing the same thing over and over. And so I totally understand the different situations that people come across, not just because we coach our clients on these kinds of issues all the time, all day long, but also because I have this, challenge myself as well. Things can happen to us, like we can become downsized, we need to work longer because of the recession. You might have a loss of fulfillment in what you've been doing because you've been doing that job for so long and you're unsure where you fit in with the new work environments. We had a client recently who got a new job and he was very excited about it, but he called me a month or so in and he said, Hallie, they're playing with Nerf guns the whole time and I can't get my work done. So I just want you all to know, first of all, out of the box, that I completely understand the different situations and reasons why you might be here today. We work with clients all the time who are experiencing these types of issues and obstacles and concerns. And here's our agenda that we're going to talk about today to help you overcome this and find work that you truly enjoy for whether it's this last phase of your career or your encore career, whatever the next step is for you for whatever reason, that you're looking out there. So here's our agenda. We are going to talk about 3 basic steps that you need to take in order to get moving and get started on finding work you love after 50. We want you to first define fulfillment, and we're going to talk about how you can begin to do that today, identifying career values and where your career values are now, because it's likely that they're very different than they were when you were in your 20s, for example. We're going to talk about number 2, our ideal career model that we use with all of our clients to help them determine what the right next fit is for them in terms of their career. And we'll talk to you a little bit about how you can sell yourselves at this age if you're concerned about age discrimination or any of those other obstacles that tend to come up at this phase in life as well. And then finally, step number 3, we're going to have you start to expand your thinking. And I will show you our career brainstorming process that we provide and walk through our clients with to help you start to brainstorm and look out there at what is available online. And there are 4 basic steps to conducting that process. And this is one of the first things that we have our clients do to just kind of see what's out there, because there are so many jobs that we don't even know exist, especially if you've been in one career path or in one role for a very long time. It's hard to know what's actually out there, and that can feel very overwhelming. So this career brainstorming process is very good to help you kind of research what your different options might be. One of the things I wanted to let you all know up front as well is if anyone would like a copy of our PowerPoint slides, in addition to receiving the recording, as Sarah mentioned, please feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. We would be absolutely happy to share the slides with you, just so you don't feel like you have to be frantically writing everything down while we're talking today. Okay. Why is this issue important? Obviously, you all are here today for an important reason. And here's what we have found, or here's the deal with, the clients over 50 that we encounter and work with. Professionals over 50, they face different fears and concerns to a certain extent. And some of these examples on this slide here may be things that you resonate with. And if there are any others, by the way, please feel free to write those down, because one of the things we want you to start thinking about is to understand what your concerns or fears or issues might be around moving towards this goal. So, because you need to remove the roadblocks right away in order to move forward, obviously. So if you take a look on this slide here, it could be anything from you're concerned about age discrimination, or maybe you have actually experienced it before. Another one could be concerns regarding financial stability, which is a really big deal and very important to consider. The changing work environment, like I referenced before, and how and where do I fit in, based on my age and how much experience I have. How do I want to leverage that at this point in my life? So there's lots of different fears and concerns that those over 50 can face and have. And the good news is that it takes work, and it takes being thoughtful and persistent in your job search and being consistent about your action steps. It's not like it's snap your fingers and it's Pollyanna so easy necessarily. But the good news is that you can find that fulfillment and that sense of satisfaction and get back to a sense of purpose in your work in whatever way you define it at this point in your life. So that's the good news, and obviously that's why we're here today. So the first thing that I want to share with you is the beginning step here that I referenced before is to begin to define fulfillment for you. And as I said before, it could have changed, obviously, since you were in your 20s or earlier in your career. Or for some of you, and consider this as well, for some of you, it may be that, gosh, I actually want to get back to that fulfillment and why I got into this industry or into this role in the first place. I've lost that sense of passion or fulfillment, and I need to get back to it, okay? So the first piece or action step that we want you to take in order to be thinking about and defining what is fulfilling and rewarding to you right now, okay, at this point in your life and in your career, is 2 things. We want you to dig underneath your hobbies and interests, and I'll explain why this mermaid is on the slide here in just a second. And also, at the same time, do both. Even if you feel like your fulfillment or passion may have changed and maybe your life circumstances have changed enormously since you were 20, still look back to your early career and what are some of the things that were important to you then and why you took the job, that very first job that you had. A lot of times there are clues to things that are important to you even now, looking back to your early career. So one of the ways to get started knowing what you want in terms of what would be rewarding and fulfilling, and therefore what career path would be right for you, is to write a list of things that you would like to have in a job at this point in your life. And we want you to dig underneath your hobbies and interests, because a lot of times, even if your hobbies or interests aren't like financially viable career paths, or they're things that just wouldn't be realistic for you to pursue at this stage in your career, you want to look underneath those anyway, because there could be clues to what some of your values are right now. So I'll give you a quick example, and this is why this mermaid is on the slide from Weeki Wachee Springs. So when I was a kid, I grew up in Florida actually, and we would go to Weeki Wachee all the time. And at the time for me, I wanted to be a mermaid at Weeki Wachee. That was my career goal. And obviously that's something I didn't pursue. But when I thought about what the right career path is for me, and even today, how to tap into what my values are and what's important to me, when I think about being a mermaid at Weeki Wachee, there are clues to what some of my values are. I have a value of risk. I really enjoy having my own business, and I have a high risk tolerance for my revenue stream going up and down to a certain extent. Of course, it doesn't as much anymore because it's been 18 years, but still, one of my values is risk, and so it's okay for me to have my own business. I like to try new things all the time in my business and take big risks. That's okay with me because it's fulfilling and rewarding. And in my personal life, hobbies and interests, I love horseback riding and I love snow skiing. And there are different reasons why I like both of those things, but there is definitely that element of risk or that value that's present in both of those interests as well. I'm not going to go be a horseback rider, Olympian or whatever it is, or an instructor. And the same with, snow skiing. But there are values present in everything that you do. So I want you to start to look at and think about and look underneath what those hobbies or interests are now and what are some clues to possible values based on those things. Okay, so that's action step or homework assignment number 1, is to dig underneath your hobbies and interests and look to your youth and early career to determine what you want to carry forward and what's important to you now as well. The second thing we want you to do to define fulfillment in this first phase or step here is we want you to take a look at our ideal career model. And you can basically print this out and use this as a guideline or even a checklist to help you define what the right next career step is for you. Let's take a look at this together for a moment here. So I always have clients start with fulfillment. And the reason why we do that is we have a very specific process. And what we have found is when our clients start with fulfillment and thinking about what's going to be really rewarding for them and challenging and give them a sense of accomplishment now, it impacts everything else on the career model. And it also gives them the most career ideas and helps them really think outside the box to look at what's out there. So fulfillment is one of the juiciest pieces of the model, which is why we have them start with it first. So you take a look at fulfillment, begin to identify what your values are at this point and how you might be able to honor those values in a career path. Then take a look at enjoyment. This section of the model is where you want to start identifying and writing down what are my most enjoyable tasks that I have performed in my professional life in the past and that I perform now outside of work. Make a list of those tasks because those could be clues to possible career ideas as well. For example, if data analysis is something you enjoy, or teaching and mentoring and educating, or if it's something related to human resources, connecting people, those are things that can give you some possible clues to career ideas from the enjoyment piece of the model. Then you want to identify what your strengths are now. And one of the things that we have found, especially for professionals kind of in my age range, is that sometimes the strengths that we have, we're kind of sick of using some of them. So with the strengths piece, you do want to identify what your top 5 strengths are, for example, and how you would like to leverage those in this next career path for you or in the next job. But you also want to make sure, everyone, that you're only writing down the things that you continue to want to use. Because if some of your strengths have been overused or you're just kind of, tired of doing Excel spreadsheets, for example, even though you're great at them, whatever it is, you want to make a shift and transition and use that strength a little bit less if possible. You also want to take a look at your past education and experience. Dig underneath. I know this could be very far back, obviously, but dig underneath courses that you took at Georgetown. When I thought about my career path, I thought about, and what I wanted to do long term, I thought about the classes that I took at Vanderbilt that I really, really enjoyed and that I gravitated towards, including the ones for my major. And interpersonal communications, psychology, and mentoring and teaching, those were always three of the biggies for me. And that helped validate my choice to become a career coach. Look past at your past experience as well. What are the experiences that have really made you feel lit up inside, whether it's personal or professional, and past experience that you would like to carry forward, and in terms of, the next career path, but also past experience that you kind of want to leave behind. That's okay too, to help you get clear. Consider what your personality type is, and personality is very much related, by the way, to your strengths. Are you more introverted than extroverted? Are you more of a leader, or do you like to be kind of behind the scenes? Do you tend to be more creative, or you like process and efficiency? So think about your personality type and how that interplays with the work environment. These two are very important. They play together and interact with each other enormously. So this is where you also want to think about, gosh, at this point in my career, what kind of work environment do I want to be in, and what's going to be the right fit for me? And then finally, we look at compensation. Now, here's the deal, everyone. We don't look at compensation last because it's the least important. It very often is one of the most important pieces. But what we have found is if you start with this process, with the fulfillment piece and everything else first, you will identify career ideas that are more outside the box than you would have thought of otherwise. Too often people kind of cut themselves off at the knees, so to speak, in their creative thinking because they go too quickly towards, well, I have to make the right amount of money, so I can only do this, this, and this based on my past experience. When there are so many career paths out there that you may not even know about or haven't considered yet. And by using the model and going through this as we talked about today, and then considering kind of compensation along the way, but as a final step to really narrow down your final two choices, that's going to help you think outside the box more, okay? So that is our ideal career model. With this piece, I suggest that you, again, print this out and write in each one of the boxes, what are your top 5 values? What are your top 5 enjoyable tasks? What are the classes or educational pieces of your past education that you want to carry forward? Go through the model step by step. It's a really good checklist to help you be practical and tangible and objective about this whole process versus feeling like, gosh, I have all these ideas swirling around in my head and I feel like I'm in spin cycle in the dryer or something, and it's just more confusing than anything. And the final piece, let's take a look at this next slide here. The final piece, in order to help you define what's fulfilling to you, there are 4 things that we would recommend that you do, as well as the exercises we just talked about. Think about number 1, how do you define success? What does success mean to you at this point in your life and career? Most likely, at least to a certain extent, it's changed, obviously, since you started out in your career. And think about what that means to you right now. And with this one, I would recommend you just free flow kind of write and journal about this. Let everything spill out onto the page, and then start to go back and identify what are the themes I'm seeing that are possible values for me, but also what are sort of the internal qualifications that I want to have in terms of my next career path. Those would be the values and leveraging your strengths. And what are the practical, tangible things I need to have as well in terms of work environment and life balance and everything else. So define what success means to you and journal about that for about 5 or 10 minutes. It doesn't have to take that long. The second thing you want to do is go ahead and list out and define or identify what your interests are. Things where you lose track of time, where you're just in the flow in the moment. Those are things that you can dig underneath, like we discussed before, in order to identify values. And I would even think about previous interests from, a long time ago or over the years, things that you may have lost touch with and just don't do anymore. What are some possible values from those interests from before that could give you some clues to possible career paths now? Another exercise to journal about would be number 3, and that's the ideal day at work. What qualities do you want to have in your work life at this point? Is it a shorter work day? Is it working part-time? Is it having flex hours? Or no, you want to get out more and, connect with people on a more regular basis. Whatever it is, write about your ideal day at work. And then finally, identify your top 3 career values from all of these exercises. And we're going to do the poll here, Sarah, in just a second. So if you want to go ahead and bring that up or start to, that would be great. So
Okay.
in order to, did you do it already? Oh, good. Awesome. Thank you. So in order to identify your top 3 career values, everyone, you can cull the information and identify the themes in the exercises we discussed already. But one of the things I wanted to point out here too on the slide is we have our clients do a peak experience exercise very early on in the coaching process in order to define what fulfillment means to them and identify their career values. Write down and tell a friend about this, everyone, after you've written it down, a peak experience in your life. We encourage you to pick one that was a personal one so that then you identify values that are really true to who you are versus things professionally that you feel like you should say, like accomplishment, success, et cetera, et cetera. So choose a personal peak experience. It could be a moment in time. It could be a period of time. It could be a trip to Italy, for example. And I'll explain to you, this will be our example for today, like how you can start to pick out the values. So someone might be telling you about a trip to Italy, and one person may be discussing, gosh, the food and the culture and how much they loved connecting with people and, you know, learning about the cooking and what the history was behind the recipes or just, you know, the history of the area. And a different person, same trip to Italy, could be talking about, gosh, I loved planning the trip, deciding where we needed to go, determining how much time we should spend at each place. Those 2 people, same peak experience, have a completely different set of values. The first one is probably more about like history and connecting people and getting to know them in context. And the other person is more about like planning and maybe project management. 2 completely different sets of values, same peak experience. So it's very important to share with someone else what your peak experience is, by the way, because they can help you pull out what those values are and will help you identify things that you may not realize or may not have heard you even say yourself. So that objective opinion is really, really helpful. So Sarah, could you share with us the poll results?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to launch the poll out again in case there's anyone who didn't get to participate initially who wants to tell us whether or not they know what their career values are. Interested to see what the breakdown ends up being.
Perfect. I know. And I sort of jumped the gun. I maybe have said it a little bit early. I get excited and then I talk too much. So
Yeah, I completely am there with you. So this just gives folks who didn't get a chance to answer just to give us their feedback. I'll leave the poll open for just another couple seconds. Thank you guys so much. So Hallie, it's probably not surprising, but it looks like folks are pretty evenly split. A little bit of a higher percentage of people saying that they do know what their career values are than not. So 52 to 48%, yes versus no, but you know, kind of split right down the middle there in terms of knowing or not knowing.
Okay, yeah, that isn't surprising. Thank you for sharing those and everyone for participating as well. So for those of you that do know and feel like you know what your career values are, that's awesome. I would recommend doing at least a couple of these exercises just to kind of refresh them. One of the things we suggest our clients do is once a year, you know, basically annually, check in with their values because they can change or shift. And even if yours haven't changed dramatically, and this actually goes for everybody, the order of them can shift. And as you can imagine, if one of yours has dropped down, for example, in the list of priority, it can make a big difference in your career choices. So do reevaluate at least a little bit. And for those of you that don't know, these are great exercises, obviously, to help you start to identify those. And don't hesitate, everyone. Remember, talk to friends and family about how they see you living your life now and what they see may be important to you. And by the way, brainstorm ideas with them. Have them brainstorm possible career ideas with you, keeping in mind that you want to, you know, review the model thoroughly to make sure that, you know, any of your ideas are on track, okay? And that some people may have a stronger opinion about something based on just one of the pieces of the model, and so it may not be quite the right career fit. But at the very beginning here, everyone, when you're reviewing the career model, one of the things I wanted to mention too, this is part of step number 2, is to, after you've identified your values, then I want you to start going through this. But to remember that we have to incorporate all of these pieces of the model before or in order to define the right direction. And what happens to a lot of us, understandably, it's normal, is we may have picked a career path in our past based on our strengths and maybe compensation. Oh, well, I'm good at this and I'm going to get paid well. Okay, so I'll go do it and try it. But if you notice, those are only two pieces. And then the work environment, if that's out of whack, it's not going to work. If you don't have that sense of enjoyment or fulfillment in some way, it's not going to work either. So keep in mind, as you're looking at your values and as you're brainstorming different career ideas, which we'll talk about in just a few moments here, you need to have all of these boxes checked. It's too often, even when we're working with clients and have been, that they'll start to kind of go down a path that they think might work for them, but then when we bring them back to the model and say, okay, you really need to look at this again and make sure all of the boxes are checked, then they're able to narrow down their ideas a little bit more, and they realize a couple of them may not incorporate all of the pieces of the model. A couple of things in terms of reviewing the model that I did want to recommend as well. So we talked about the values exercise. The strengths in terms of identifying, I should say, what your current strengths are and where they lie in terms of your top 5 strengths. We really like the StrengthsFinder assessment. That website is strengthsfinder.com. The reason why we recommend that is we find that people's strengths, kind of the order of them even, can change over time. We also like that assessment because it's affordable. It's only around $20 to get your top 5 strengths. So by the way, if you decide to get or take the StrengthsFinder assessment, you'll be fine with just the top 5 strengths. They give you a lot of material in that assessment with just those top 5. We also like the StrengthsFinder assessment because it's easy to digest and understand. You don't have to have an expert like the Myers-Briggs, and some of those other personality assessments are fantastic. We love them, but sometimes you have to have those kind of interpreted. With the StrengthsFinder, you can pretty much interpret it on your own. And the last reason why we like it is because it provides you with very useful language and verbiage to use when you're selling yourselves through networking, to help you develop your elevator speech, and also to leverage during an interview to talk about what your strengths are. You can use some of the language that they're using directly from the report. It's fantastic, okay? With education and experience, we talked about that as well already. You can find many little free personality type quizzes online. We have a workbook that we use with our clients and we sell online. There's a lot of little personality type assessments in there too. But go ahead and take a few of those. One of the websites I did want to mention in terms of an assessment that helps you with personality type, values, and interests is onetcenter.org. It's O-N-E and then center.org. And Sarah, if you get a chance, if you could maybe put that in the chat box, because it's kind of a weird one. We also recommend bls.gov. That is a great website from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics. It can help you brainstorm different career ideas and also give you what the salary range is for those different career paths and also what the requirements are. So those are some tools that can help you look at and identify personality, work environment. And then in terms of compensation, to help you identify this part of the compensation piece, obviously, or the main part, is what are your financial requirements right now and what are your goals with that for compensation. But also thinking about what your health benefits are, if there's flex time, vacation time, whatever is most important to you, keep in mind that compensation is not just about your salary and what you're going to get paid. It's also about those other benefits as well. We like, for salary research, we like glassdoor.com and indeed.com. And we recommend that you use both of those websites. They'll give you a range, kind of a salary range, and you can take a look at their research online. It's very helpful to give you a sense of the career ideas or jobs that you're considering, what those salaries might be based on your location, okay? So those are some additional tools and tips to help you review the ideal career model and give you some ideas to kind of start brainstorming. And we're going to talk about the brainstorming actually in just a second as well. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, too, before we get to step number 3, is if any of you feel like you have specific needs in a specific situation that's kind of unique that you need some help with, please feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. I would be happy, I should say, to do a free career strategy session with any of you. If you feel like you're like, okay, this, I need some more specific advice on the model, or I have a question about something else, please feel free to sign up for that. I'm happy to offer that to anyone on the call today. All right, so let's take a look at step number 3 here, and this is our career brainstorming step. So after you have begun to identify what some of your strengths are, you have a clearer sense of what some of your values are, and you're starting to get clues to what some of the themes are across the career model for you, whether it's financial analysis or, science or event planning, whatever the themes are in terms of your interests and your strengths. The career brainstorming process is the third thing that you want to do, okay? And here's the deal. The reason why we offer this and have this as part of our process with our clients is because, understandably, the problem that comes up for career seekers normally is that there's so many factors to consider in order to find the right fit. Just like we talked about with the career model, there's a lot of things that you need to consider, so it can be really overwhelming. And there honestly is no comprehensive website out there that has a list of all of the career paths that are out there. That just doesn't exist, unfortunately. So we've got to do the research that we're going to be talking about today to help you figure this out. The result is that career seekers like you, they're already unhappy and kind of uncertain what their next step is. They really can become overwhelmed and fearful, and they just don't know where to start and feel really stuck. So if any of that applies to you all on the call today, this is a very tangible, practical process that you can take to start to brainstorm ideas. One of the things I want to say as we begin to share this with you is that you need to take it step by step and give yourself time to go through this process. This is not a one-shot deal. You're going to sit down in an hour and all the answers are going to come to you. Please see this as a multi-week process where you're going to sit down at the computer for, in half-hour increments or 1 hour at a time, once or twice a week, whatever is best for you based on your schedule. And you're going to start to plug in these keywords into these different websites to identify what's out there. And as you need to take a break between your sessions of doing this as well, so you can allow some of the ideas to kind of, sit and allow your brain to make other connections that it wouldn't have otherwise. So take a look at this slide here. The first thing that we want to do is identify keywords that you are going to plug into these job boards, as well as some of the career brainstorming sites that I'll share with you in just a moment. The second thing you want to do is you want to plug these keywords into general search sites. And we'll talk about this more in a minute, but what I mean by general search sites, everyone, is like Google or Bing. So you would say careers in event planning, or careers leveraging or using data analysis, or careers in marketing, and just see what pops up, what different articles come up, what different, schools list, what marketing majors can do, with their degree. Obviously, that's not your situation right now at this age, but you get the idea. We'll help you brainstorm ideas. Then we're going to look at brainstorming sites. Those are the career brainstorming sites specifically. And then finally, the last step is looking at job boards using those same keywords. One of the main things that you need to consider in advance before you get started is you have to stay organized in this process. Too many people launch on this, path and start to do this research, and they get lost in the internet. They can't remember, where they started. So we highly recommend you use Excel to track the relevant keywords, the keywords that you came up with that are the most useful to you, and get rid of the ones that are not helpful and are pulling up career ideas that don't make any sense. You need to track the career ideas that you're coming up with so you can add to and adjust your list. You want to track and copy and paste, everyone, the pages that you want to come back to. So just so you know, we want you to spend at least like 5 minutes on your keywords. Like that's the only thing you do at the beginning, and come up with as comprehensive of a list of keywords as you possibly can. Use the website synonym.com to come up with synonyms so you have other ideas to plug into the job boards. And then once you go and visit and see pages, whether it's on the job boards or it's on Google, go into them for just a second, everyone, but then copy and paste that link if it is something relevant you want to read later on. Don't go too far into that website because that's where you're going to get lost. So copy and paste the pages you want to revisit. Use Excel to track the requirements that you have for yourself and the salary requirements as well, but also what the requirements are for the jobs that you're looking at and the ideas. And Sarah, if you could pull up this next poll here, we want to ask you all how effective you feel your networking skills are, because by the way, everyone, it's still where it's who you know, and networking is a critical piece, not just to landing the job, but also it can help you identify the right career path. So you want to use Excel as well to track the networking connections that you want to reach out to, that you conduct informational interviews with, and that you meet with, so you're very clear about who you've spoken to and what that conversation was about and what action steps that you have or that you need to take afterwards. So you're very clear and organized. So if you all could fill out this poll for us, that would be great.
I'll just leave it open for a couple more seconds. Thanks so much to you guys for responding.
Perfect. And I find that usually this is one of the benefits of being our age, is we usually have a larger network, which is fantastic to leverage. And some of us stay in good touch with them and some of us less so. So that's one of the things we need to beef up.
Alrighty, Hallie. So it looks like we have 39% of the audience saying that their networking skills are poor, 51% saying that they're good, and just 10% saying that they have excellent networking skills. Thank you all so much for participating.
Thank you. And we want to move everyone up to that excellent spot if we possibly can. I will admit, I would say that mine are in the good section. So just to be transparent and honest, I can work on them too. So one of the things I want you all to consider, please, is even at this point in your career, informational interviews are still incredibly valuable and helpful. You don't have to call them informational interviews. You can say, hey, could I grab coffee with you to talk about networking, to get some advice on putting my best foot forward in my job search, to learn more about, you know, what this career path is like that you are in and how it's changed over the last 20 years. There's lots of different things you can call the informational interviewing, but bottom line, we want you to get back into your network, you know, reconnect with them. One of the reasons to do that is to brainstorm these career ideas and learn more about what these people are doing. And those things, informational interviews, are not just for recent college grads. I had a woman who is a VP at a very large construction firm, Holder actually, and she conducted an informational interview with someone at the same level at Kimberly-Clark. They spent an hour on the phone, and the woman at Kimberly-Clark said, I wish more people would do this. It's such a fantastic idea. It was very helpful for her to understand what it was like to work in that organization, but also at that level, what the work environment was like, but also the tasks and the requirements and what the woman enjoyed about her job and what she didn't as much, to help our client identify what was right for her. Okay, so definitely leverage your network for that reason, as well as for the job search when you're ready to do that. By the way, we do have a complimentary job search worksheet. We give it to our clients. Happy to share it with you all. Please feel free to email us at admin@halliecrawford.com. It's pre-filled out basically in Excel with the tabs that you need, and it will give you the things at the very beginning in terms of brainstorming different career ideas, the information that you need to gather so that you can narrow down your ideas. It's filled out for you already. So here's our overview of sites. So after you have identified your keywords and written down that nice list of them in your job search worksheet and your Excel sheet, you want to start with general search sites like Google, like we said, career sites, and then job boards. We do recommend, by the way, starting from the left. Start with Google. It's kind of like a funnel where you start larger and you funnel it down. So we do want you to do the general search sites first, the career sites second, and then the job boards. Because by the time you're looking at the job boards, ideally you've narrowed it down to one or two career paths and you're just kind of finalizing your decision. Here are some of the brainstorming tools that I wanted to share with you all specific. Some are specific for our age group, some are more general, okay? If you take a look at this, the brainstorming tools at the top here, Second Act Careers is a great website and book that talks about and gives you kind of an overview of a lot of different career paths that you can check out. onetcenter.org. Sorry, Sarah, I forgot this was on the slide here. I referenced this just a few moments ago, everyone. onetcenter.org is a great one. myplan.com is another one that is helpful to brainstorm career ideas. It does look like, by the way, everyone, when you go to that site, it does look a little bit geared towards recent college grads, but it serves the same purpose. We use it with our clients all the time of any age. Another one that's great is americascareerinfo.net, and the website is there underneath. And then another one to understand what your skills and strengths are is the myskillsmyfuture.org. The job boards that we tend to like, by the way, in addition to LinkedIn, we love LinkedIn as a job board, but the more general ones, when you're beginning your searching and you're trying to just brainstorm ideas kind of in general, we like Indeed.com and Glassdoor.com as well. Those are very good websites that don't have a lot of a lot of other stuff on them that may not be relevant for you, and not a lot of ads and those kinds of things. So those are really good websites. And then finally, in terms of job boards, when you get to that point in the process, plugging your keywords into those, you do want to be looking for industry-specific websites that list jobs just for that industry. Idealist.org is one that's great for nonprofits and NGOs and foundations, for example. And marketinghire.com is just one example for the marketing industry. So be sure to look out for those. As part of this, everyone, when you've started to narrow down your ideas, maybe to 2 possible career paths, that's where you want to start identifying what associations are out there for those industries. Those are great places to get your feet wet, go meet some people in the industry, hear a speaker so you can learn a little bit more about it. Keep in mind that associations that are industry specific are very good for this brainstorming process as well, and to meet people too and expand your network. So step number 1, as we said before, and I'm going to go into each of these steps just a little bit more. Those were the overview slides, and these are the specific steps and how to perform them, everybody, is identify what your keywords are and brainstorm those. You can do this with a friend or family member as well. They may have some other ideas, like we said. But your keywords, what I mean by that is it could be interests, like we said, you know, the financial analysis, et cetera, but it also could be pulled from your skills and your strengths. So look kind of in both areas of the model, if you will, to identify what some of the keywords are that you'd like to play around with to see what's out there. When you plug your keywords into, you know, Google, you say careers in or careers using. When you plug it into job boards, you can just put data analysis, for example, into the job board with your zip code, because that's going to pull up even jobs that don't have that job title, but have that as part of their job description. So just know that the keywords are going to kind of work a different way depending on what the site is, and you may need to adjust them just a little bit, okay? And we gave you some examples already. Step number 2 is to look at the general search sites. This is where you would cast a wide net, career and data analysis or jobs in education. I gave you these examples already, but just to remind you, you may need to play around with the string of keywords a little bit in order to find articles or blog posts, as well as listings of different jobs that would be related to those. And then step 3 is the brainstorming sites. I gave you the list of those before. My Plan was one of the examples. Keywords plugged into these sites, everyone, help you narrow down your ideas. And because sites like ONET and BLS, for example, they give you the requirements for the job, and in some cases, they give you the salary range, it helps you begin to make things a little bit more real, like what's going to be practical and realistic for me to pursue, not just, oh, this would be fun, okay? So that's part of why these are important at this phase of the process, because they'll help you start to become practical and tangible. And step number 4 is to search the job boards, like we said. These are the 3 on the left here that we prefer and feel are the most helpful. All right. The last step, obviously, that you want to do, and I did at least want to bring this up, everyone, because we talked about at the beginning, people could be concerned about age discrimination. How do I sell myself? How do I come across as like, you know, I'm not out of touch with the industry that I'm in, or whatever it is you want to revise your resume and LinkedIn, obviously, so that you can get up to speed with your search once you have made your decision. So here is kind of the final step after you've performed the other ones. And I wanted to just share a couple of things with you, and then we'll do our quick poll at the end, move to our action items, and then Q&A. So your cover letter, your resume, and LinkedIn profile, keep in mind, they should represent you and communicate your brand, and they should be consistent across all of them. I've heard some clients say, does a cover letter really matter anymore? Yes, it does. They are still used. Some employers don't ask for them, but from my perspective, it's another opportunity to sell yourself. So create one and submit it, even if it's not requested. Your resume, some of the standards have changed to a certain extent. Resumes are looking a little fancier these days. Some people will use color. They'll use, different highlights or gray shading. If you need, some assistance with your resume, we're happy to help you with that. But just pay attention to making sure that your resume looks clean and up to date. And LinkedIn is no longer optional. It is something that's absolutely necessary to be on as a professional. I will say, as a quick caveat, we do know that there are industries that use LinkedIn less than others. For example, we found that higher education and the medical field, they tend to not use it quite as much. But from my perspective, regardless of the industry you're in, if people are, if they receive your resume, regardless, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to try to find you on LinkedIn. And if your LinkedIn doesn't look good, they're going to put a question mark there. And if you're not on LinkedIn, they might put a question mark there as well. So make sure that you have a profile and that it's up to date. That's also something we can help you with if you feel like you need it. The top tips for all of these materials: check the formatting, obviously maintaining the consistency, use white space. People tend to think, especially when we have so much work experience, I'm going to put everything on there because it'll make me look like I'm really qualified. Anything that is beyond or past 10 years old, you can drop it off your resume and leave it off unless it is relevant for the jobs you're applying for. Include keywords in your resume so that, and in your LinkedIn profile, by the way, so that the computer scanning software, they pick those things up and they'll, pass you through. Remember to mention marketable results in each one of your bullet points on your resume. Don't just have it be a glorified list of tasks. That's not enough. And make sure too, and Sarah, if you can pull up this next poll, that would be great. How many know how to leverage LinkedIn effectively for networking? We're curious about that today as well. With your resume, you want to make sure that you have a summary at the top that sells you. It can be called a professional profile. It can be called an executive summary. We personally like it when you give yourself like a job title that would be relative or similar to the job you're applying for. Senior level marketing executive. That brands you on your resume right out of the box. So if you all could complete this poll, that would be great. And then
I'll just leave it open for a couple more seconds. Looks like we have almost 80% participation, so a couple more are you looking to hear from.
Awesome.
Alrighty, let's see what our breakdown looks like. So Hallie, it looks like 38% of our audience said yes, they do know how to leverage LinkedIn for networking, and 62% said no, they do not.
Okay, so this can be, thank you, Sarah, for sharing. This can be one of your last steps, everyone, but it's a critical piece to understanding, how to update your LinkedIn profile, get on LinkedIn and make it effective and work for you, and how to leverage your LinkedIn network. And that should be a topic we should talk about soon, Sarah, if we haven't already. One of the things I did want to mention to everyone, and I'm going to move to the next slide because I do want you all to write down, please, one action item that you will take in the next week to make this happen. It could be your peak experience exercise. It could be I need to update my resume. It could be I need to get on LinkedIn. It could be I need to meet with two of my friends who are very well connected and I need to have coffee with them to kind of get that networking thing going. One of the things I wanted to mention as you all are writing these down is when you are a professional with the experience and at the age range that we are, you want to not be afraid of your experience. Tout it. Explain to the prospective employer why your experience is an asset. Don't hide from it or shy away from it. Explain to them why you can hit the ground running, why you have an extensive network and that can be helpful for the job, why you don't need training, on the job to get going. Why? Because you have so much personal and professional experience, and that life wisdom, that is why they should hire you. So instead of, don't be too fearful about the age discrimination issue. What I want you all to do is explain in your cover letter and in your resume why your age is an asset, okay? And just own it, because that's the best thing that you can do. One of the things I will say, and then I promise I'll be quiet and then we'll do Q&A. If you need a free consultation, the strategy session, like we said, happy to talk with you further. Here's the email again, admin@halliecrawford.com. But one of the things that I wanted to say before I close and we go to Q&A is that if there is something that is not relevant to the job you're looking at, and you do feel makes you look overqualified, or they're gonna think possibly that you'll demand too high of a salary, or that you'll leave because you'll get bored because you're overqualified, you can take something off if needed. So for example, we had a client that we worked with, she had her PhD and she kept getting the feedback from people, you're overqualified because you have a PhD. The PhD wasn't relevant to the jobs that she was applying for. They didn't require it, so she took it off. She could explain it in the interview if she had to, but if it's not relevant to the position, this is not lying, and I'm not saying to lie on your resume, but if it's not relevant to the position, you can remove it and explain it during the course of the interview if you have to. And if you need to say something about being flexible with the salary or compensation inside of your cover letter, if that's okay with you and is an accurate statement, you can reference something in there. I don't want you to undercut yourselves, but it is something you can reference if you think it's a big deal and if you're okay with it. And beyond that, though, bottom line, you want to explain to them more heavily maybe than a 20-year-old would why you want this job at this point in your life. Why is this important to you? Why does it honor your values? And why you're looking at this position. You don't have to say, even though I'm overqualified. We don't want you to say that. But reference and explain why this is something that would actually be a challenge and be rewarding for you. Okay, so if everyone could go ahead and start thinking about the questions that they have to ask, that would be great. I'm going to leave you, for my part of things, with the greatest risk in life is not taking one. This is the quote I always like to end with, because I know some of these things I've asked you to do today may be a little bit outside your comfort zone. Remember, everyone, without risk, there's no reward. So let's go to the Q&A, please, Sarah, if we can. Go ahead and enter any of your questions that you have. And please know, everyone, if we cannot get to your question today, I'm happy to answer your questions via email afterwards at any time. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Be happy to chat with you either over the phone or via email, whatever's going to work best for that particular question.
Great.
All right,
Thank
I'll be
you so much, Hallie. We do have some questions that have come in, and all of you do have some time, so please feel free to send in your questions for Hallie. Hallie, thanks so much. This information has been great so far. So to start us off, a question: what if you're looking to actually take a step back career-wise to maybe like a more junior role or one with less pressure, less responsibility? How do you relay that information without just sounding like you're willing to take any old job, or for instance that you maybe want even the hiring manager's job? How do you kind of express that and phrase that really well?
Sure, great question. So that would be similar to what I referenced just a moment ago, where I would say, pretty much up front, I'm applying for this position, and here's why. This is the type of, job that would provide the, connection with other people. Or, if you can't say it's going to be challenging because it's a step back, then say, this is going to provide me with the, connection with other people and a way to leverage my strengths and skills in a different way than I have before. It will provide me with the lifestyle and the life balance that I'm looking for at this point, in my career. So I would address it up front in the cover letter and in the interview and when you're networking with people as well, so that you're really clear about, without saying, because saying that is not coming across as desperate. It's being clear about, this is what I want now, and this is what I'm going to be happy with for these reasons. So you need to come up with what those reasons are that would be valid for the job and make sense, and spell them out in your cover letter. If they don't, require you to send in a cover letter, do it anyway, because this is an important message that you want to get across. So that is what I would do as a start. If you need additional assistance with kind of wordsmithing that, happy to do so. Feel free to contact me.
Wonderful, thank you. I really like the phrasing of this next question, so I'm just going to read it word for word. Very disgruntled attorney, age 50 plus, looking to bail out of the law and into education. Any advice on how to present myself so I don't look disgruntled, and how do I make this transition appropriately?
Great question. So similar in a way, why you want to get into education. So not talking about the bad reasons, the negative things about why you want to leave law, and instead say, these are the skills and strengths and the experience I want to leverage in a new direction and in a new way, because it's going to be a different environment for me that I'm excited about. I'll be able to leverage these strengths, but in a different format and in a different manner. Hey, I'm looking for something that is a little bit more creative. That's it. So always focus on the positive, everyone, and where you're going versus, if they're asking you why you're leaving, you can still give to a certain extent that same information. You could say the work environment was no longer a fit for me, but as soon as possible, you steer the conversation towards the positive. Focus on where you're going, because that's what they should care about at the end of the day anyway, and that's how you would best explain that situation.
Awesome,
Great.
Thank you. A couple of questions about LinkedIn. So I'll start with this one. Should you put detailed descriptions of each position on your LinkedIn profile, similar to how you would on your resume, or should you just put company and position?
In terms of the summary on LinkedIn, is that what it was, Sarah?
And in terms of each one of the jobs that you've held, so you can put, just the company and the position, or you could put a little blurb about each one, kind of like how you would on a resume. What do you recommend?
You need to have the bullet points and a blurb about it, because here's the thing. It may feel like, gosh, well, it's redundant to my resume. LinkedIn will be to a certain extent. Your summary can be different in that you can be more personal with it and talk about why you're enthusiastic about your role or the role that you want to be in, and you can use first person. But what if they look at your LinkedIn first? And because you don't have the bullet points, they decide not to, continue to look at you because for whatever reason they lost your resume or they don't have it. So I would absolutely have those bullet points on LinkedIn as well, not just the job title and a quick summary of what you did.
Great, thank you for that. Another question about LinkedIn. So is it worth making a LinkedIn profile if you have no contacts linked? So say you're trying to keep a really low social media profile, you're not on social media regularly, you don't want to have to be on it now to land a job. Is that still worth making a LinkedIn profile?
I absolutely would, because it's ideal. It's much better if you build up your contacts and connections and, are more active. But if that's uncomfortable for you, you still should have a profile up there, because 9 times out of 10, one of the first things an employer will do once they get your application come through is they'll look for you on LinkedIn. And if you're not there, it's an opportunity that's missed for you to sell yourself, for you to have a nice, good-looking, professional, warm photo on there that they can connect with. So I absolutely would. And then start building your connections in a way that works for you, but at the very least, have it up there.
Great, awesome. And then last question about LinkedIn. Do you consider the paid version of LinkedIn worth it, so LinkedIn Premium?
The LinkedIn Premium. I think it's worth it for people who are going to really leverage LinkedIn and want to do a lot of searching for other connections on it, because the Premium gives you the ability to email unlimited people, excuse me, or at least close to that. But it's not worth it if you're not really going to leverage LinkedIn. For whatever reason, if you're more comfortable with good old-fashioned networking face-to-face, that is fantastic and works incredibly well still, obviously. Go that route and just leave the free LinkedIn, option. You don't really need Premium unless you're going to really spend a lot of time on it.
Great, thank you. Hallie, another question, and I feel like this one really encapsulates kind of what you went over today and is a good one to maybe end with. How do we regain the confidence to take risks like we had in our 20s and 30s? So, most of the folks on the webinar today are a bit past that. And so how do they maintain and regain that confidence or embody that confidence?
Sure. A lot of different ways that you can do this. I'll give you some thoughts and advice. Write down a list of all of your professional and personal accomplishments to date to help build your confidence. If you feel like you need to take a class in some new software or something that you're not as good at, that's one of the things you can do as well. Interview friends and family members about what they see are your strengths and your qualifications and how you stand out. and getting those kind of reviews from other people, that's fantastic as well to boost confidence. Those are some starters.
Wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Any final thoughts or words for us today? Everyone, I know there are more questions out there. We are at time, so I really encourage you to please reach out to Hallie. You can continue the conversation with her offline, off the webinar. She's eager and willing and completely open to any questions you have, so I really encourage you to reach out to her and ask more. Hallie, any final thoughts or words you want to leave us with?
Just to own your age, because you have so much to bring to the table. So do not let any of those fears or that concern or concerns about your age be an obstacle or a problem for you. Identify and really shift your perspective to why it's a huge asset, because it is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Hallie. This has been great. Everyone, you'll receive a link to the recording of this session. If you would like to receive the slides, you can definitely email me or email Hallie directly, and we can share those out with you. Again, I encourage you to follow up with Hallie with questions. Thank you all so much for being here with us today and asking your questions and participating. Wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Hoya Saxa.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great